This is Gemara Baba Basra Daf Kuf Nun Tes. We're holding the very bottom of Kuf Nun Ches Amid Beis. An exciting day in the world of Daf as we wrap up the 9th parak here in Baba Basra, which means we're closing in Psiyata Dishmaya on the end of the largest Mesechta in Shas in Dafim, 176 Daf. 158 in, absolutely wild, Baruch Hashem. And once again, we like to dedicate tonight's share to the incredible zchus Rafua Shalema for Tinok ben Miriam Ahuva b'siyata d'shmaya. The koyach ha-Torah, the Talmud Torah keneged kulam, the zchusim generated of Torah b'rabim should continue to be mashbiah and bring a complete Rafua Shalema for Tinok ben Miriam Ahuva. We're holding in the bottom of the two dots. We're going to go up to the two dots. Amrla ben Azay al chalukim anu mitzarin. Aval, etc. Ben Azai, etc. Vikiva. We don't understand even the cases which they argue. In this case, Beishami Beisil agree that Nafal Abais Lav Alimai of Yachlaiku. And still in this case, Rabbi Akiva, you're coming along and you still saying Nechasim Bechazkasan. Amar Rav Simlai, Ada Amra, Ben Azai Tamachamad, Rabbi Akiva. From here we see, from the way that Ben Azai spoke, from the fact he said some choice words, the Ka'amar Lei Shabasa, from the fact that he said Shabasa teaches us that Rav Akiva and Ben Azai must have been Chavirim, Talmud Chavar, on the same playing field. Says the Gemara, Shalchu Mitam. Ben Shalava Benichse Aviv Ashayla, that came down from Eretz Yisrael. As we'll see eventually, it's going to circle us back to our Mishnayis. A son that borrowed against the father's property Bechaye Aviv, while the father was alive. Umeis, and the father dies. Beno Motzi Miata Lekuchais. The children are able to extract and take away from the Lekuchais, the purchasers. V'zui shekashe b'dinei mamnis. This is the difficult one of dinei mamnis. We'll see exactly what the difficulty is. But if you want to know what's kasha b'dinei mamnis, Baba Basra Kuf Nun Chesam and Beis, as we see this case over here. Says the Gemara, loive my mapik. The son is the loive. Son is the borrower, my mapik. What is he seizing? The father sold the property. So because the son borrowed against that property, that gives the son the right to be mapik, to seize the property. Number one. Va'oi, number two, lekuchais. Maya vitete. What are the kuchais doing over here? The son borrowed against the property, but he never said that the property was sold. So where in the world do the lekuchais get involved in this story? Says the Gemara, you know what? There has to be another detail that we missed. Eli etmar, hachi etmar. Says the Gemara, let's fill in the missing blanks. Let's go a little bit deeper. And let's get clarity in just pashit what the case was, so that we can understand the halacha. Says the Gemara in the Tavakov Nandazam and Aleph. Ben Shemachar b'nechzei aviv b'chayei aviv. So already we have a new detail. A son sells something. A son sells property of the father while the father is alive. Umeis. The father subsequently dies. Benai, so that son, or I should say better, as the Rashbam points out, the Benai is the Ben Beno, the son of the son that we're referring to. Says the Gemara. Now let's delve in, let's understand what is the difficulty. Let the purchaser say, Avucha mizavein. Your father sold us the property. Vat mapik. That's of course why it's clear that we're dealing with the son's son. But the lads of Lekuchai say, get out of here. What do you have to do with us? Your father sold us the property and you're diving in. Says the Gemara, umay koshya. So what is so difficult? Delma matzi amar. Maybe the son can respond. Mikach avu adaba kasina. We come from the kayach of our father, and that's the reason why we're able to seize the land. So why is this so difficult? Teidat, and the Gemara says, I'll bring you a raya that such is so. Dichsev. Tachas avusecha yebanecha. Then the place of the father should be the son. Tishiseimu l'sarim b'chol haaretz. We see a son takes the place of the father. Says Gemara, you're right. That wouldn't be so kasha. Eli kasha, kasha, I'll tell you the kasha. Ben bechar shem ochar. Chelek b'chayra b'chaye aviv. Ben bechar. We have a firstborn son, Shemachar, that sold the chelik of his b'chayra. Mamish this week's parsha, Esav selling the b'chayra. So we have the firstborn son selling his b'chayra b'chaye aviv while his father is alive. Umeis b'chaye aviv, and he dies during his father's lifetime. B'nai moitzi miyada lekuchais, the firstborn's own son can take away from the purchasers after the grandfather dies. V'zu, and this! Kasha b'dinei mamanis. So says the Gemara, v'chid avua mizavein iu mapik. The father sold, and he, the son, is mapik. That is the kasha b'dinei mamanis. Says Gemara, 1 second. V'chitema, maybe you'll suggest hachanami amar mikach avua da'aba kasina. You could say, becoming the kayach, my grandfather. Mikach avua da'aba kasya. Chelik b'chayra ma'aviditei. Says the Gemara, they can't be, and the reason why this is kasha b'dinei mamanis is because if he's coming mikayach avua da'aba's grandfather, then b'chelik b'chayra ma'aviditei, what business does the grandson have with the b'chayra? The grandson is not the firstborn of the grandfather, so they can't be. Says the Gemara, my kasha, what's so shver? Tilma matzi amar mikayach avua da'aba kasina u'b'makayim av kamina. I'm taking Mekayach from the grandfather in place of my father, who is the Bechar. So says the Gemara, we can understand this halacha as well. What is so kasha? Eli kasha, kasha, attempt number 3 at what is so shver. We're trying to figure out why is this being referred to as the kasha b'dinei mamanis. Hayadei loy eidos b'shtar ad shaloi nase gazlan, a new case entirely. So knows Eidis and signs a shtar as an aid, as a witness, and then he becomes a gazlan as his gazlan. Then he can't testify in his own signature because now he's pasul Eidis, he's a gazlan. But others are able to made in. Others could testify about him. Says the Gemara, so what's the shverkeit? Why is this kasha b'dinei mamanis? Hashta iu. He, with regard to himself, loy mehemin, he's not believed because he's a gazlon. Yet achrini mehemin v'zui shekasha b'dinei mamanis. How could others be believed? And this is a kasha b'dinei mamanis. Says the Gemara, smack in the middle of the and the first one in line is my kasha. Says the Gemara, my kasha. I don't understand. What is so shver? There are times that one cannot give edus about his own signature, but if Bezdin could verify that it's a valid signature, it works. So why is this so shver? Says the Gemara, you're right, Ali Kasha, Kasha, attempt number 4. If someone knows edus in the star before Yerusha falls to him, and now, because it's negayat him, because he's getting it as Yerusha, he's not able to makayim his own signature. Others, says my kasha. Just like we said a moment ago, just like his signature is much like bebezin. I'll tell you the kasha number 5. Someone knows Eidus before he becomes a son-in-law. But how can someone else be believed if he's not believed? Says Gemara the same kasha. But Amar Rav Yosef bar Minumi Amar Rav Nachman afal bish ochsik saviyadai bebezdin. So that's why it's shver. Says Gemara, my kasha. Delma Gzeres Melechi. Maybe there was a decree of the king that what Iulam Emin Vachrini Mehemin. Maybe it's a divine decree of Gzeres Melech that a relative, a son-in-law, is not believed, but others are believed. Says the Gemara. a moment ago when we said that he's a gazlon, then I understand that it's shver to split and say that he doesn't have an amanis and someone else does. But over here, the guy didn't do anything wrong. He's a karoiv. He's a son-in-law. It's nothing to do with the fact that we're afraid of him lying. So what's it so shver that someone else could give eidos? He says the Gemara, you have to say this because if not, Moshe Aaron the Chaisna Misham D'Lo Me'aminu. Moshe Aaron, they were related. They were disqualified to give eidos about their fathers-in-law. Is it because Moshe Rabbeinu Aaron Akaya they weren't believed? Of course not. Alexeris Melechu. So too in every case of a chaysin Alexeris Melechu shayidu aksav yadai lechaisnai. That is Exeris Melech, you can't give testimony of your signature of the father-in-law. So says the Gemara, so it makes sense that other people can give eidos about you. Finally, after 5 different attempts, says the Gemara, we're going to go back. And you know what? The kasha b'dinei mamanes is really what we thought about originally. And we asked, we said it's not so shver because he can take the place of the father. How says the Gemara bebracha ksiv? That's a dafka that's specifically about a bracha, but it's not in general that one can take the place of his father regarding Yerusha. Says the Gemara, Mima tzami bebracha ksiv? Are you really suggesting that the pasuk is only referring to bracha as we turn over to Kof Nun Tesam Beis Aval? However, what is the suggestion in Yerusha, both regarding Avalinian Dinar, regarding the day and the lie, as the Rashbam says, Bitmiya? Is that really what you're going to split this hair? Tanya, but we learned in a brayso, so this is why this whole progression was brought back, because of the following Tanya, which actually here means a Mishnah back and Daf Kuf Nun Zayin. Nafal Abayis alav alaviv alav hamarishav. Va'isalav tu azisha balchayv. Yoshav Mrim aben meis yishan v'acha meisav. Ubalchayv Mirav meis yishan v'acha meisaben. So my love, says the Gemara, what is this case Yoshav? Binei, the father's Yarshim is the sons. Ma'rishav Achei, the one whom he inherits are his brothers. So says the Gemara, if we are reading the case correctly, here's the kasha. V'is al kadaitach. But if you're going to tell me, v'is al kadaitach loimati amar mikoy chavu adaba kasina. So articulates the Gemara that if you're going to tell me that the whole pasuk is only by bracha, that when do you take the place of a parent is bibracha ksiv, but not in general by din, by Yerusha. If the son were to die first and then the father dies afterwards, what difference is it? The father's Yarshim, the grandsons, would still not have a claim to this estate. Because the Baal Chayv could say, I'm taking the inheritance of your father. Why? Because it is now subject to the shibud because it came through. So for the fact that the Mishnah says that no, that it goes to the grandsons and not to the credit to the Balei Chayv, this shows that the grandsons get it directly from the father. So the whole, what's the kasha? Let's just spell it out one more time. We just suggest that this whole pasuk of Tachas Yibanecha is not in din. That in din, in Yerusha, you don't go straight from the father, from the grandfather. It's only bibracha. Says the Gemara, then how in the world can we explain the Mishnah? And Daf Nun Zayin. Says the Gemara, no. Yarshiav is referring to Ech of his brothers. My Rishav is Achei Davua. Once we have another way of explaining the Mishnah, it's no kasha, bechlal. And we can stick to the fact that Tachas Yibanecha is talking about bibracha dafka, and the Mishnah Daf Kuf Nun Zayin is talking about different parties entirely. Continues the Gemara, we're 8 lines from the wide lines. They ask the following Shaila of Rav Sheshes. What is the status of a son inheriting his mother after the son is already nifter? And so what does it mean that he's inheriting her? For the purpose to give it to his own brothers from his father. So he wants to inherit his mother to give to his brothers that he was from his own father after he is no longer. So Amar Rav Sheshes spontaneity to Av Shenishbeah. Umeis, a father that was captured. We learned in a brayso. Umeis benay b'Medina, and the son died in the Medina. Uben shenishba, or a case of a son that was captive. Umeis aviv b'Medina. Yarshei aviv yarshei aben. Yachloiku. They split it. The Yarshei aviv yarshei ben. So says the Gemara, what's going on over here? If you're going to tell me that the case is, as the Brisa says, that the father and the son have the same Yarshim, Ben, what exactly is the case in the last narrow line? As follows, the case must be as follows. The father was taken captive. We're moving over to the first wide line. Av shenishba, one more time, Umeis ben Bita ben Medina. And his son's daughter, Ben Bita, the son of his daughter's son, dies in the Medina. Ben Bita shenishba, or case Ben Bita shenishba, Umeis avi ima ben Medina. V'lo yadina, we don't know, hey minayo Umeis bereisha, yershav, yershav ben yachloiku v'misa. Says the Gemara, but if it's true that his son inherits his mother after the son is in the kever, in the grave, he can inherit in the grave. So proves the Gemara it can't be that the son inherits from in the grave. On the fourth wide line, so the Gemara says, we have to prove as follows. It can't be that the son inherits in the grave. So I'll tell you the same raya. Again, we're going to bring a raya again that a son does not inherit bekever. Lahanchil lachem minav. Another Mishnah. A Mishnah that we had in yesterday's daf. Novel abayis alav v'alimoi. Elav elamoy dimshach laiku. Mamish, the case that we started with today, everyone agrees in this case. We say achlaiku v'misa, and if it's true that the son inherits the mother begever, ninami deben meis berisha le'er to limi lekivrei, le'er to inu lachem me'avu alav shmamina, must be a raya. Ein haben yershesimoy bekever lanachalachem min av shmamina. Says the Gemara to givaldik rayas. Says the Gemara v'tayim amai. Now what's the reason? Okay, so we prove the halacha. The halacha is that the son does not inherit his mother bekever to give to his own brothers from the same father. But now the Gemara wonders why. Amar Abaye, I'll tell you why. Nemra siba beben v'nemra siba bebal. Says siba. Siba means to transfer. Says by the son, it says the same transfer when it comes to the husband. Ma siba amar bebal ina bal yershes ishtoi bekever. Av siba amar ben ina ben yershes imoi bekever klasul gzeir shavlach lachem anav. And that is the raya. Says the Gemara, we wrap up the perek with two more cases to put into the bank. So instead, I'm selling you the property of Bar Sisin. And guess what? There was one piece of land that was called the estate of Bar Sisin. However, the question is it because he bought it from this guy named Bar Sisin? Or was that the name of the estate? So Amarle, Halav de Bar Sisin. So the seller says, guess what? This is not the one that actually purchased from Bar Sisin, but rather, Bar Sisin. This is getting confusing. But he said, guess what? That land, it's called Bar Sisin, but it didn't come from Bar Sisin. And he didn't want to give it to the buyer. Rav Nachman did not believe him and he gave it to Li Lokech. What is going on over here? If the buyer cannot prove it, he should not be able to get this piece of land. Says the Gemara of Rami de Rav Nachman, a double stira. This problem said this, my boys, my base, what are you doing this? What do you mean I bought it from you? Brings us all the way back to Berich Cheskes Abatim. He's saying, what do you mean? What am I doing here? I bought it from you. I've been here. So he responds and he says, I don't know what you're talking about. The owner says, I was living there the whole time. A little bit scary. Go prove that you were there for the Shleich Chazaka for 3 years, and then you'll have a Chazaka. Rav argues, so we have Rav and Rav Nachman taking each other's sides. Kasha the Rava, the Rava, the Rav Nachman, the Rav Nachman. Says the Gemara, the Rava, like Kasha, it's not a stira in Rava. We have the classical different muchsak ois. Depends who's there. The Rav Nachman, the Rav Nachman, Kivan Damalei Devar season make create by the season. Aleti de Ram like Lui de Lavar season. Nachmal Tarikasha Rav Nachman. He said it is bar season. Oh, but it's a different bar season. Okay, so that's upon you to prove. Whereas over here, over here it's as if he says the shtar, and therefore will we not tell him first we makayim the shtar, and then you'll get the property. So there's no kash and Rav, there's no kash and Rav Nachman. Hadron aloch mishamei. Certainly a chazara is required. As we're now going to dive into the Paraket Pashit, which really in a way we shtickle finish Baba Basra. We go into the 10th parak in the next year, Daf Kuf Samoch, the last 16 blot, which will deal more with Gittin, back to the Gittin days, B'siyata Dishmaya. We should continue learning together, Amir Tzah Hashem.